Today from Indianapolis, a town synonymous with speed, we bring you the best in side-by-side monster truck racing. Bigfoot, Taurus, and the Carolina Crusher turned the Indiana State Fairgrounds into their very own personal brickyard. It's ground-pounding, hammer-down action coming up next. The trucks and tractor power on the Nashville network. Today we're at the Indiana State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis for the four-wheel and off-road Jamboree Fall Nationals. Hi everybody, I'm Gary Lee alongside Army Armstrong. And Army, the old adage you have to have a program to know the players certainly applies here this weekend.
That's exactly true, especially in two cases. The name Taurus is synonymous with a fast monster truck. The Wellman family, father and son team, they've driven it for years. They brought their nephew into this thing. Eldon Depew will be the new driver for this truck. The truck is proven. We're going to find out about the driver. That's the newness of the sport. The old part of the sport is Nick Rossi. You know the name Rossi. He came out of New Jersey. He used to drive the Jersey Outlaw. He's going back into the driver's seat. Rossi still believes, Gary Lee, he's got the right stuff and can be competitive with these young guys.
Well, we'll have side-by-side monster truck competition from the racing capital of the world, Indianapolis, coming up next. We look across the infield of the storied mile dirt oval here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. At this racetrack could only talk, the home of the annual Hoosier 100, the richest dirt car race in the world. But this afternoon it's a 12-truck format. The monster trucks competing here in the infield. The fast qualifier is Bigfoot. He will take on the Giant, the 7th fastest qualifier in round 1. Also King Crunch matched up against Nightmare. Also matched up in round 1 will be Taurus, with Eldon Depew against Tropical Thunder, Wayne Smozanik, and the Outlaw, the 4th fastest qualifier, against Wild Thing. Once again, a 12-truck format here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. Micro Machine will be up against Bad Medicine in round 1, and then Gary Porter's Carolina Crusher and Colt Cobra in Snakebite.
Gary, it's kind of interesting because all the major manufacturers are represented. Dodge, Ford, Chevrolet, GMC, they're all here. And the people that sit in these grandstands are used to seeing some good racing, as you noted a moment ago, with the open wheel racing that normally comes here. But we're on the infield now. We're going about 350 feet. Time to show and tell, isn't it, Gary Lee?
A new truck here against an old truck, Giant. That is Kirk Dabney, now calls Fort Wayne, Indiana home, originally out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. He goes up against the St. Louis-based Bigfoot and Andy Brass, and it's all Bigfoot.
Yeah, real quick, suspension is the name of the game. Dabney had his hands full, wanted a high side and what have you. Meanwhile, Bigfoot goes out in the right lane and just literally airs it out, absorbs the energy. He's got to be a happy camper.
Well, here is a look at the new technology, the tube frame truck. Now watch the suspension work on Bigfoot, and you can see Giant hop up in the back, and that's the major difference right there. As Bigfoot takes the victory, Andy Brass is down with Army.
Andy, there's got to be a good and a bad track, but when you draw number 1, how do you make that determination?
Well, that's just what's hard to do. You know, we was trying to watch a track in qualifying and then pick a lane on the first run here. We picked the lane we qualified in. We're just going to sit back now and kind of watch it. We hope we run fast enough this round to give us lane choice in the next round. Like I say, we'll just sit back, watch the lanes, and see how they work.
So as Andy Brass walks back to the paddock area, we take a look at the auto value King Crunch of Scott Stevens out of Spring, Texas. It's been a tough season for Scott. He's been upside down a number of times trying to turn that season around as he goes up against Steve Hess. Steve, a Hoosier from Columbia City, Indiana, and he drives Nightmare.
Well, Hess will be driving under the banner of the Penda Corporation. They make some of the finest bedliners in the world. Meanwhile, Auto Value supports Scott Stevens, so we do have corporate involvement here. Whoa, Hess drilled him on the line. Can Stevens pull him back? No, he's not going to do it, Gary.
You can see the old suspension work, but he had the horsepower to pull it out.
Exactly.
He got the whole shot. And Steve Hess takes the victory in Nightmare. So the GMC will have to face off with Bigfoot in the quarterfinals. Look again. There's the whole shot, but watch the stiff suspension.
Well, both drivers are literally having to drive these trucks all the way. And then when they land, you just hold on.
Army, let's talk to Steve Hess.
Well, some people might have called that an upset. I don't think that's the game. You've played it a long time. You're coming around, aren't you? You're finding a handle.
Yeah, the truck has been doing real good. You know, this is the last race for this truck. And we've worked real hard to get it where it's at, and we'll be back with a new truck, hopefully, within the next race we'll be at.
Be stepping up with the GMC brand again?
Yes, right. With the Hydromatic GMC Penda truck, we'll be back next time with a new one, we hope.
Well, Coming up next is a truck they should rename all in the family. This is Eldon Depew. He is a nephew of Jack Willman Sr., the owner of the truck. We've seen Jack's son, Jack Jr. drive, so everyone in the family gets a shot at driving Taurus, and he goes up against Wayne Smozanic, the Chevrolet from Jupiter, Florida, called Tropical Thunder.
Gary, I wonder what the Willman family talk about at family reunions like Thanksgiving and Christmas. Sit around and talk about monster truck
how tender the turkey is.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, we got a race, Gary. Look at this. Hey,
wow, but Depew takes the victory in Taurus. So the nephew turns in a good ride here. I just wonder how they determine who actually drives the truck.
Knowing these guys, it could be with the flip
of a coin.
Exactly.
So Taurus advances as he will send Wayne Smozanic to the trailer.
Smozanic comes to the sport from drag racing. His reaction time showed us that.
Yeah, but it was horsepower over reaction time. Here's Eldon.
Eldon coming into the driver's seat of one of the toughest trucks on the circuit. Does that put a whole lot more pressure on you? You know, it doesn't seem that way from the outer.
No, it's not really a whole lot of pressure because these new design trucks, they're real smooth, real easy to drive. You know, you got to have some driving ability, but Jack Willman drives an excellent truck.
Great, now, but Jack Willman's not driving that truck today. You are. How does it feel to you?
It feels excellent. You know, he designed it, he's happy with it, and I'm happy driving.
We'll see you in the next round.
Thank you.
So Eldon Depew drives Taurus here this afternoon. A good crowd on hand at the Indiana State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis. And here is the Outlaw, Nick Rossi, back in the driver's seat out of New Jersey. And he will go up against Wild Thing, Jim Booker, out of St. James, Missouri.
Well, Booker's trying to work his way through his freshman year in the sport. He runs a rear motor type setup. Meanwhile, the Outlaw, they say once you learn how to ride a bicycle, you never forget. Let's see if Rossi knows how to ride a monster truck. Yeah, he's still got it, doesn't he, Gary?
Well, Rossi's like the old gunslinger who's been off the dusty trail for a while, but he's back.
He's going to smack this new kid around and show him who's boss is what he did right there.
Well, he gunned him down right here on the start. Booker has a problem immediately getting over that first set of cars. No problem for Nick Rossi. The Outlaw takes the victory. Here's Army.
Nick, you're back in the driver's seat. How's it feel to you out there?
It feels real good. It feels real comfortable. I'm ready.
You're still an attack driver, aren't you?
Yeah, we're trying.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Round one competition now continues with the Micro Machine. Bob Breen, the Breen Brothers racing team out of Eldon, Missouri. And he lines up against Don Van Loo, another Jefferson City, Missouri veteran in Bad Medicine. A couple of show-me state drivers here.
Well, you got a Chrysler-powered vehicle in Van Loo. You got a Chevrolet-powered Micro Machine. Both of them live about 20 miles from each other. Who you draw in the first round?
Oh, look at this. Look at this. Oh, but the Micro Machine picks up the victory in no man's land. That's where he got it. The horsepower in that flat section between the two sections of cars.
He had to pull it out in mid-range because Van Loo was running him hard. You know, it's kind of interesting. You know what this guy does for a hobby when he's not driving monster trucks? Like some old Harley motorcycles. He gets out and rides around the Missouri mountains on them.
Well, that Harley rider takes the victory here, and he's standing by now with Army Armstrong.
Well, Bob Bremen, you've been away from the driver's seat for a while, but it doesn't seem like you lost a thing.
No, I kept up with the sport pretty much, watching it on TV at home, and I always went out on the road with my brother a few times, didn't get to drive, and I watched him and worked on the truck. Just kept, you know, kind of kept practice like that, watching the other drivers, so I kind of see how if they was changing their techniques or anything, so I keep up with it. And then I could start driving again all here a while back, and I don't know, John said, well, why don't you start driving the race truck? You want to stay home and start booking some more shows, and here I am.
Well, I'm glad to hear that he says someone watches us on TV when he's not racing.
Well, here is the Carolina Crusher with Gary Porter, and no one knows. They call him Colt Cobra in the snake bite.
460 cubic inch blower drive service engine in the snake bite. That's about all we know about this truck. On the far lane, Gary Porter, one of the nicest guys in the sport, but Porter left second in this race. Can he pull it back mid-range? Yes! Look at here, Gary.
Look at the horsepower. You can see the flash bulbs going off in the background. That was sheer horsepower because the reaction time went to snake bite.
Well, that was like an interior lineman. He got down and got after it at mid-track. Watch this. Snake bite definitely out there. Now Porter
lifts the front end, and he takes the victory, and Gary now is with Army Armstrong.
Gary, isn't it wonderful that there's a second half to a racetrack?
It sure is, because my alarm clock wasn't working that run, and I was sleeping bad at the line, and You know, luckily, you know, I had enough power and, you know, big enough motor and everything to get me, you know, going between the two sets of cars. Other than that, snake bite would have beat me.
I'll tell you what, he laid a shot on you on the line. You're around, though. We'll watch you in that next round.
Okay, thank you.
That wraps up round one competition. We're coming back for the quarterfinals from Indianapolis, Indiana. An enthusiastic crowd on hand here at the Indiana State Fairgrounds as we are getting ready for quarterfinal action. Hi, Gary Lee along with Army Armstrong. Now we look at the pairings for round two. The Bigfoot Ford, Bigfoot 8, Andy Brass will go up against Steve Hess in Nightmare, the driver from Columbia City, Indiana. Also, a couple of new names on the circuit. Eldon Depew in Taurus, Nick Rossi back in his Outlaw. Also in round two competition, we'll have a pair of Chevrolets, the Micro Machine of Bob Breen, and the Carolina Crusher with Gary Porter. So the fast qualifier is Bigfoot. Andy Brass, and there is a look at Andy out of St. Louis, Missouri, the two-frame Ford, Bigfoot 8, and he goes up against the Penda truck, the Nightmare of Steve Hess, Columbia City, Indiana.
Watch Hess's front wheel, Gary. He's rolling into, they're actually digging right there. There's about a 3-inch indentation in the track where they're actually digging holes. So right now what I'm saying is both of these trucks are sitting down in a little valley. The first move is an up move. Boy, Brass.
Up. Speaking of up,
Yeah.
Look at the air and the hang time of Andy Brass and Bigfoot.
You know, Steve Hess is a player, man, and Brass just thumped him on the top end of this track. Look at the half-track lead that Foot has. Now, that's the difference in the new suspension on the left and the older suspension on the right there. Can't make it any clearer, Gary.
The newcomer, Eldon Depew in Taurus, survives first-round competition. He puts his neck brace on there. Out of Granite City, Illinois, the nephew of the truck owner, Jack Willman Sr., and here is Nick Rossi in the Outlaw.
You know, during the interview a minute ago, I noticed Rossi is very relaxed. He's the owner of the truck. He's actually having fun here, and he's not afraid of this kid. Look at here. Rossi's going after him.
And Rossi, well, wait a minute. That's almost a dead heat. Let's wait for the official word on that one.
Nick Rossi can still drive a monster truck. He just proved it right there. He drills this kid on the line.
We drilled him on the line, but Eldon Depew comes back right here over that second set of cars. Look how close it is.
You got to call it. I can't.
I can't call it. Let's wait for the official word. Right there it is. Nick Rossi, the Outlaw, takes the victory. He's with Army.
Well, Nick Rossi and Bob Breen are showing us old monster truck drivers can still be good monster truck drivers. You look like a kid out there.
I'm ready. I'm psyched. I'm just ready to go.
You're having fun today, aren't you?
I'm having a blast.
Well, we'll see you in the next round. Good luck to you.
I'll be there.
Well, you can see the enthusiasm, the joy written all over his face as we take a look at Gary Porter in the Carolina Crusher, the Big A Auto Parts Carolina Crusher. And he will face off against Micro Machine, and that is Bob Breen, the Breen Brothers Racing Machine.
You know, the track crew wants to thank you for letting the starter use your rubber gloves in order to line these guys up today.
Those are not my Simpson fire retardant gloves.
Boy,
Now, this is going to be Gary Porter.
Yeah. He's for real. And right here, Gary, you're looking at the future of the sport. Here are two high-tech trucks. They make a good run. The ideal scenario is to get your suspension literally to land like a wet sponge to absorb the energy, isn't it?
Well, of course, the suspension system allows the truck to land and the driver get back on the throttle, get that power back to the ground. It was all Gary Porter, and he's standing by with Army Armstrong.
Gary, you can almost tell how you're going to leave the line that time. You were not going to be left at the gate this round.
No, you know, I got a new motor in it. I've changed the suspension some. The truck's, you know, working and handling totally different. You know, I hadn't got used to it yet. You know, I am winning the races, but I still need to be running a half a second faster than what I am if I'm going to win here today.
What are you basing that on?
Well, you know, my reaction time's a little bit slow today. My suspension, I'm getting a little bounce, you know, between the two sets of cars. And the motor, I'm not really turning the blower up like I was at one time, and I still have, you know, some minor motor adjustments to make.
We'll see you in the next round.
Okay, thank you.
As Gary Porter says, so many factors involved. As we take a look at the semifinal matchup, Bigfoot and the Outlaw. And then Taurus, the fast loser, goes up against the Carolina Crusher. The two winners will meet for the championship. Andy Brass, St. Louis, Missouri, Bigfoot number 8. The entire Bigfoot family, I think, is here this weekend in Indianapolis.
You know, that's an interesting point. They are. As part of this jamboree, the people bought a ticket. They not only get to see monster truck racing and custom truck displays, Bob Chandler brought all the Bigfoot trucks over, but this is the one they're all looking at right now, and he's got problems.
Oh,
and
yes.
Nick Rossi's going to the next round.
Nick Rossi, the Outlaw, he has some trouble on his landing.
Well, any
something
landing you
is
can
amiss
walk
in
away from
Bigfoot.
is a good landing, and that's proof of it right there. And Rossi, I tell you, what happened was front-wheel drive only. Watch the dirt get kicked up on the starting line. Rossi doesn't worry about it. He's driving his own race. He has no idea where Andy Brass is. He's got tunnel vision. He's looking at one thing, the finish line.
Well, Andy Brass climbs out of Bigfoot. There was a mechanical problem there, and he takes a look at the rear drive. You were right, they only had front-wheel drive. They're looking down there at the transfer case right now, so Bigfoot out of competition, but here's your winner, Nick Rossi.
Nick, when you came into the pit area, a lot of guys just kind of thought you were playing. It's final time, and you're going to be in the final. You get real serious when you get up in that big truck, don't you?
Yeah, it's a completely different ball game when you get to the line. Everybody's friends in the pits, but it's blood and guts at the line.
So Rossi now will watch Gary Porter in the Carolina Crusher as he faces off against Torres. Torres with Eldon Depew out of Granite City was the fast loser in our last round.
Both of these drivers have one thing in common. They've both been beat on the lights today. Neither one wants it to happen twice. Here we go.
Good start for both, but right now it's Gary Porter. He powers out. Eldon dips the front end going over that second set of cars, and Gary Porter in the Chevrolet, the Carolina Crusher, sponsored by Big A Auto Parts, takes the victory. So we will have a Ford and a Chevrolet in the championship shootout here in Indianapolis.
Look at that nose-over attitude of Torres. Now, he says that's an easy truck to drive. I don't know, Gary. His idea of easy and mine could be two completely different things.
Well, there's a look at Gary Porter. He will be in the championship against Nick Rossi. We're coming back for one more pass. From the Indiana State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis, it's the four-wheel and off-road Jamboree Fall Nationals. And Army, as you said earlier, these Jamborees are more than just great monster truck racing. We have the show and shine, the manufacturer's midway, something for everybody. So if you'd like some more information about these great trucking events, call or write the Special Events Company located right here in Indianapolis. A good crowd, an enthusiastic crowd. And Army, your thoughts on the finals?
Well, Gary, as it has happened so many times this year, the two major manufacturers wind up in the final. Chevrolet is going to be represented by the Tar Heel State, the Carolina Crusher, Gary Porter. New truck, new idea, new concept. Could be the guy to watch. He does have lane choice. But the Ford camp is going to be represented by a guy that came into this thing, and really nobody thought he was going to be a player. Nick Rossi goes back in the driver's seat out of New Jersey, and it's going to the final for the Ford camp. It's going to be a good one. Let's watch it.
Nick Rossi in the Ford, Gary Porter in the Chevrolet. The fans are ready for the final championship run here in Indianapolis. And there is a look at the Outlaw, Nick Rossi, and look at those steel blue eyes.
You know, I guarantee you, under that helmet, he's got the war paint on.
Gary Porter in the Big A Auto Parts Carolina Crusher. That's the Chevrolet. As they stage the two monster trucks for the final shootout here in the infield of the famed Indiana State Fairgrounds Mile Dirt Oval.
Well, this place has seen a lot of great racing. We're at final time for the monster truck section now, Gary.
Both trucks are staged. They watch the Christmas tree. Indication both drivers are ready.
They both lead good. First jump, Rossi's out a little bit. Porter's got
once again, it's the horsepower of the Carolina Crusher.
Boy, Nick Rossi was a player till half track.
He had the reaction time, but Gary Porter had the horsepower.
That was a good race. These people in this part of the country, they're used to seeing good racing. Well, the monsters didn't let them down. What it was, Rossi didn't get as high in the air, see, and that let him get the horsepower back to the ground quick for the first half of the race, Gary.
But after that, it was all Gary Porter. He takes the victory, and he's down there with Army Armstrong.
Gary, these victories, they don't get any easier the further we go into this thing, do they?
They don't. I mean, the competition out here gets tougher and tougher, and you have to keep on improving, putting new parts. And, you know, I like to thank Big A Auto Parts, my brother's four-wheel drive shop, and all the friends back home for helping me, because if it wasn't for them, I couldn't do it.
You're basically a privateer in the sport, but still have a lot of people have to be helping you, don't they?
That's right. You know, most of the time out here at the races, I'll come by myself for the weekend, but back home, you know, I got some of the greatest guys there are in the world back home helping me. You know, my brother, you know, he helps me, you know, a lot of time after hours in the store, and if it wasn't for them, there's no way I could do it.
We're very proud of you. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
That's right, Army. Congratulations to Gary Porter as we take a look at the aftermath of the Outlaw, dripping some transmission fluid there. Well, that wraps it up from the Indiana State Fairgrounds here in Indianapolis. For Army Armstrong, I'm Gary Lee. Thanks for joining us. Join us next week for another edition of Trucks and Tractor Power. Now stay tuned for exciting news about a new home video release from Diamond P Sports.